Hello there, and you're welcome along to a very special episode of the Football Pod. It's episode 41. Paddy Andrews, James O'Donoghue. It's like we never went away. I haven't seen you in a while. How are you?
All good in the hood?
Yeah.
41 for the year, is that?
Yeah, I know. Clocking in the weeks, aren't we?
One in the mileage, lads. Fair play to us.
We're getting there. And we have a special guest this week, boys. Mark O'Connor is joining us from Dingle.
What a guest.
International superstar,
yeah. What a year he's had. AFL Premiership winner this year with the Geelong Cats.
Couldn't get the better of Jimmy though, could he? Huh?
That's it. Couldn't beat the Kerry machine.
I feel like he may have been worried about another forward or two that day, was he?
Nah, it was just me.
Okay.
Jeez, how would East Kerry go in the AFL? That's the question.
Will he win it?
You'd be wouldn't be far off. You beat the Sydney Swans, anyway. The fact that they wiped the Swans in the final, I'm sure East Kerry put up a good fight.
I don't know, with the tackling it suited us.
No. Well, that's the way you and Clifford tackle anyway, just to get your yellow cards out of the way.
Can you hand trip? Can you hand trip in the AFL?
I think so, yeah.
Oh, we'll have to ask Mark.
That's a black card in football. That's a skill. A little
ankle tap.
Peter Stringer ankle tap.
Yeah.
That should be brought. That should be not even a foul, to be fair.
There you go. Mark O'Connor. Mark O'Connor was on the Kerry minor All-Ireland winning side of 2014. And that sparked a 5 in a row at minor level that would have spawned players like Tom O'Sullivan in 2014. We saw Shawnee O'Shea on the 2015 team, which Mark O'Connor captained. 2016 came along. David Clifford was on that team, scored a brilliant goal against Galway. The following year, David Clifford was on the team that won in 2017, where he scored 4 goals against Derry, where I think the game that year finished 6-18 to 1-8 against Derry. So Kerry,
isn't that mad that like it took 8 years from your minor winning team to win a?
And that's when it was under 18 as well.
Yeah. And it changed.
It proves like there is a massive jump. Like,
yeah, the fifth was under 17 level, and to be honest, looking back at that team from the under 17 All Irelands in 2018. Not a huge amount of them have broken through the senior level yet. Even for Galway, you have a couple of lads on the bench with Galway. They're on that team that lost to Kerry. And then you've had the likes of Paul O'Shea, Paul Walsh, Dylan Gainey, who we see at club level at the minute in Kerry. But none of them have really broken onto the senior team. So
massive ask. If you're looking, that's the absolute cream of the crop at inter-county level at that age. The best young players in the country. And it's still, we've said it so many times in this, it's no guarantee of success. Brilliant winning those competitions and mentally for those players. Whether you like it or not, you probably get a little bit more enjoyment when you get to Croke Park and you win a national title. But the step up, and like I say, that's an under 18. So looking at under 17 competitions now and the best players, it's no guarantee that in 3, 4, 5 years' time, you're going to be one of the main men on your county team. So interesting, but look, a couple of those guys have come through for Kerry. And I'm sure Mark O'Connor, the career he's had already over in Australia, they'd love to have their hands on him now, back in the kingdom as well. But be interesting to hear his thoughts on it. A massive change, obviously, for him, but he's been one of the guys that's gone down there and had unbelievable success.
Only 5 Irish players have ever played more than 100 games in the AFL. Mark O'Connor has 88. Only 3 have won a Premiership medal as well. Ty Kennelly, Zach Toohey, his teammate, and Mark. So look at James. It wasn't even just minor level. Like there was also Hogan Cup wins, 4 in a row that Kerry Schools had. Public School Kirkcudivna.
He had back-to-back there.
14-15, Mark was back-to-back. And then 16-17, the Stem and Clarny won 2 as well.
So Mark had 14-15 Hogan Cup All-Ireland wins and 14-15 All-Ireland minor wins.
And
before he left, he'd completed the before he left. Like
that's the thing.
He was sick of it.
Yeah.
Gaelic football completed.
Oh no,
finito.
Yeah, that was. I'd say. Do you know when you're on that run though, it comes easy. Like, and winning is such a habit. I know it's completely cliche, but they probably just rolled from final to final, complete confidence. Like, it's incredible.
It's a nice little CV though, isn't it? Like Hogan Cups are hard to win. Jesus.
Hogan Cups and they're the worst loss.
They are the worst, I'd say.
Yeah, they're a horrible defeat because you've been bigged up in school. The next thing you have to go back on the Monday. Oh, sorry, lads.
No homework this week. Take the week off homework.
Yeah. Well, James, like he had won a senior title in 14, and then the drought followed.
Yeah.
But like when you're chasing The drought followed, yeah.
Oh, for their loss.
For their loss, yeah. When you're chasing the dubs in 15, 16, 17.
There was no drought. We won about 15 Munsters in the trot.
When you're chasing the dubs in 15, 16, 17, 18, 19,
yeah.
you know, I don't know in 19 there was a little bit of talk about, you know, they're missing Mark O'Connor and he's the man to potentially tag Fenton or go up against, you know, the Dublin midfield. He would have been behind David Moore and coming through. He was the next man in midfield. But by that stage, you had Shawnee O'Shea through, Tom O'Sullivan, David Clifford, bring up Yoglake. Was there much talk about these kids coming through when you were on the Kerry panel in 14, 15, 16? Or were you just thinking, they're just minors, like we don't know what we're going to get?
After 14 there was, after they won back-to-back, 100% there was. There was no win by the minors in Kerry for a long time.
1994, 20 years.
Yeah. And like, if anything, the underage scene was getting hugely criticized. Like, we were getting drubbings to Cork, but we were still kind of giving 2 or 3 players to seniors every couple of years. I saw it was still working. The system was still working. But then once you have the Mark O'Connors, the Shawnee Shays after that, your Tom Sullivans, and then Clifford coming through, it was like, whoa, now we have like some serious talent. So then when you do
coach of that, Jimmy?
Jack O'Connor, the first 2 years.
Jack took the first 2 years.
Was he? And what was he approached? Did the county board put something in place and say, this is a good, or was it Jack himself going, we need to get the finger out here as well? Because a lot of counties are probably looking at this.
No, Jack.
There must have been word about how good they were.
Everyone knew how good they were, definitely. And Jack knew there was a route back into the senior job, I'd imagine. Like, you know, like he probably said, I'm not going to get straight back to senior job. I'll go back to the minors, get a footing there and see what happens. He won 2 All-Irelands. Then he took the Kildare gig. But like when we did kind of lose a couple of those games to Dublin, and like you are kind of thinking, what do we have extra? And you have this unbelievable talent over in Australia. Like you are kind of thinking, would he ever just come back for a couple of months? Just, you know, give us something there. Give us that extra 1%. Like, so, well, like Mark was always on the tip of our tongue. You know, always talking about him, always wondering would he come back? Yeah, the one that got away.
He's 25 now. He scratched the itch of winning the grand final, but earlier this summer he signed a new contract, which should keep him in Australia till he's 28. So we'll talk all about that now in the next couple of minutes. One of the biggest stipulations in his contract seems to be that he's actually allowed to play with Dingle when he comes home. He got a slap on the wrist a couple of years ago when he came home and played when he wasn't supposed to. So we'll talk a bit about that too. So I'm looking forward to getting stuck into this with our special guest, Mark O'Connor, straight after this. You are very welcome back to episode 41 of the Football Pod, and our special guest has joined us from Dingle. Mark O'Connor, you're very welcome to the pod. How are you?
Very well, thanks, and thanks for having me, lads.
Yeah, delighted to have you on. What's the weather like in Dingle? Because it's pretty bad in Castleknock at the minute. Paddy Andrews has pulled out the wee beanie hat.
Yeah, it's the orange level wind warning, so it's fairly hectic down here.
Everyone's just afraid to put their heating on with these utility bills. I just wear the woolly hat at the bed and everything these days.
Yeah, I have the woolly jumper on myself, so yeah, it's the same everywhere, I think.
You can't take any notice of a weather warning until it's at least a red.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, is that official word, James? Yeah.
Well, especially in Dingle. Oh, Dingle get it worse than everywhere else, in fairness.
We
get it way worse down here than you do up there. Like. Paddy, sure Dublin don't get lovely weather.
I don't know about that, Jimmy. We're soft over this side as well, you know.
That's true. What's it like in Geelong at the minute? Is it not summertime?
There's actually I shouldn't laugh, but there's been flooding in Geelong badly, and I saw actually a cricket. Geelong's just south of Melbourne, so it's about an hour out. But I just saw there was a cricket game that was postponed at the MCG because of flooding.
Oh yeah, Ireland's game, wasn't it? Ireland and Pakistan.
I think it was. Yeah, I think it was. And Ireland had just beaten England, I think.
Yeah, I got away with it. Yeah.
Yeah.
They went ahead by like a run, and then they were rained off.
Call it off.
That'd be brilliant. But no, it's shocking. Yeah, it should be coming into summer now, but it kind of isn't.
So they're giving you the thumbs up to stay home for a little while longer?
They have, yeah, they have. So yeah, I missed a couple of Christmases, and I was kind of keen to stay home for for Christmas, really, you know, and spend a bit more time with the family and things like that. So yeah, the club gave me the go ahead, which is lovely.
That's class. Was that an easy conversation to have with the club? Because obviously pre-season, when will that kick back in? Early next year?
No, December. So it starts in December officially. Normally it's early December and we train for about 2 weeks. And for them we get like 3 weeks off for Christmas. So I was like, for the sake of the 2 weeks where I could train here, I said, look, I wouldn't mind staying home. And to be honest, it was made far easier by actually winning the thing. So, but not, they're very easy with that kind of stuff. They always take the players' thoughts and feelings into consideration.
Yeah, no, you say that, but like when you think of professional sports, you know, the way I would look at it would be more ruthless, cold. You're a commodity in ways, like they're paying you to play for them. I can't imagine every team would treat it like that.
No, and there's a lot of Irish fellas out there now that probably wouldn't be able to say the same things that I would about Geelong. So I'm very lucky for that. But it's just part of their culture, and I'm very lucky really. With the people that I'd be dealing with, because they understand the person well. They know I'm not someone who run away and come back, after getting the 2 weeks off to come back heavy or things like that. So they take that kind of thing into account. But to be honest, I was going to say,
do they have the calipers out as soon as you go back?
They do, but yeah,
yeah,
they get them straight out. So we have to be cautious of that too.
It was the same with though, Paddy. Like you didn't come back until April when you won in All-Ireland, right?
You could do that if you wanted. You'd never play that. It's funny, Mark, you say that. It is depending on how the previous season went. We'd be flexible enough with Jim. We would have been as well to kind of come back in January. And if you'd gone well the previous year, you might have a couple of extra weeks leeway. If you hadn't, you didn't. And Jim was great. He'd say, yeah, do whatever you want. And leave it up to you. And then if you weren't coming back in good shape, you just weren't going to play. You're chasing your tail for the whole year. So we said it's changed a lot, obviously, GA-wise, Mark, since you would have went down to Oz, particularly this shorter season now. We touched on it for an example of Tyrone last year, the All-Ireland champions, just got back late. They did it all. They're kind of celebrating their holiday and stuff after Christmas. And so the season is 2.5 months shorter. So they never got near getting back towards the levels they were at the previous year. So I think it's different for teams. I think Kerry are away pretty soon, Jimmy, aren't they? You were saying
4th of December, off to Dubai.
Get away before Christmas, and like I say, look, it's individual players themselves. You look after yourselves, or you don't. You have to take responsibility. You're not kids anymore, And obviously for you, Mark, having had such a brilliant finish for the club and yourself with Geelong, that it's great to get that bit of leeway. You can enjoy yourself a little bit over Christmas and things like that. So it's a nice touch, definitely. Yeah. Make the most of it.
You mentioned the performance and winning it in the final, helping that as well. I read a piece that you'd done afterwards, I think it was in the 42, and you spoke about the team being in a bit of a flow state in that game. Like, was that really how it was? Because you smashed the Swans. Like, I'd admit I got up early to watch the game that morning. I can't say I've been able to tell if you're in a flow state or not, because my knowledge of the AFL isn't the greatest, but you guys were well on top in that game.
Yeah, definitely. No, it definitely felt like we were. It just felt like everything, just everywhere the game went, it just felt like we were on top. It just felt like we were a bit bigger and a bit stronger. Even though the Swans have been unbelievable all year. So it was just, it just felt like it was all going right. And it's the best day of the year for it to feel like that. So by the time, I suppose, at 3/4 time, we were kind of looking at each other as if, I'd say we have it won by this stage.
It's clicked
it's clicked, and it was kind of like, some people afterwards are kind of saying like, oh, geez, but you probably would have preferred to win it like when it's closer. And I'm just like, Jesus, I don't know, like, because we had enough time to kind of soak it in, and and just like, I suppose, be completely present and just enjoy it, where you're not like fully, engaged or stressed too much in that last quarter. It was an amazing thing.
What was the reaction like after, Mark? Was it a case of, because it was such a dominant victory and a margin of victory, and like say, it is rare enough in the biggest day of the year that you get such a comfortable victory. I'm sure it wasn't comfortable. You had to work very hard to do it. But was it a case, the reaction that kind of Sydney had underperformed a little bit, or you guys had literally just, like you say, you got into that, everyone was present, everyone's on the same page, and it was your best performance of the year? It was probably a bit of both, or what was the reaction afterwards?
Yeah, we didn't really care, to be honest. It was just, it was finally we gotten over the line after, because when you make finals consecutively and go out in kind of similar fashion, and having lost the last one, we just didn't care how it went, as long as we got over the line. And yeah, it was unreal, really, and it was gas, like, because obviously, like, Australia's so far away from home, but my brother flew over for it, and anyway, we were doing, the whatever formalities were there. There's like a lap and whatever else that you have to do with the team, and we're just trying to soak it all in. And by the time I got around the lap, my brother was out in the field, so it's
unreal.
Yeah, so it's a few of my mates, they're actually from home. They came out onto the field, so I was just gassed to see.
That's like a county final when you hop the fence to get in. That's brilliant.
It was. Yeah,
my security around the place.
Yeah.
You were running after them, like.
Yeah, it was just gas. I don't know. Yeah, it was. That was certainly a good memory. But no, in terms of performance, it was definitely pleasing to perform in the biggest day. Like, that's always going to be pleasing. But in terms of how we actually got over the line, it just didn't really matter.
Like, and for yourselves that day, and we might get into the breakdown of your role in Australia and what sort of a player you were. Like, I think you smashed into a tackle in the first 15, 20 seconds. But in the build up to that game, am I right in saying that you were on the injury reserve list? One of your teammates unfortunately got injured. You're next in line, so you're in. I know you had started a lot of games at the start of the season, but what was your own prep like going in? What's it like preparing for a game 2-3 weeks out? You're not sure whether you're going to be in or not. Is it different than how we prepare for a game back home?
Yeah, definitely. It's strange being on the border, because I definitely was in the borderline in the end, because I just wasn't playing that well, to be honest. And I kind of knew that even through the start of the year when I was playing those games. I was kind of like, geez, I'm not actually playing very well here. And that was fine, like, whatever. And
is that an internal thing? Sorry to go across you, or are your coaches and teammates pointing that out to you, or is that just how you felt?
No, they weren't. They actually weren't. But I certainly felt that way. I knew that way, really. And I feel like, well, they mightn't have said it. I think they were just waiting for me to click into gear, but I just wasn't like clicking back to how I felt like I could play. But yeah, coming into the final, it's funny. I'd say it was around, I don't know what round it was. It was towards the end of the year anyway. I got, we were doing this thing where, like, because we have depth, we were doing, we were giving certain fellas a rest, like every week. But I kind of felt like when my rest came, like, that it wasn't like they said it was a rest, like, but I was like, I'm dropped here, like,
Okay.
Management. We've all been there, Mark. Don't worry.
Yeah. And I knew, like, I was gonna
just take a couple of days off.
Yeah. And like, even though like other fellas had gotten legitimate rests, like, but by the time it came to me, I was kind of like, I genuinely think this is like, I don't think I deserve to be playing, like, that kind of way. And then once that happened, like, I was kind of like, right, now I have to cop on, like, and it finally kind of felt like it dawned on me, and I kind of felt I was still the medical sub, so I still ended up playing. So the medical sub is basically, if someone gets injured, you're allowed to come on, and you have only one medical sub. So I was still the medical sub, and I still ended up playing, and then I ended up playing the next week. But I started to feel really good about how I was playing then, which is a weird thing, which was a terrible, like, I didn't feel like I could go to I could have went to the coaches and said, look, I'm flying now and blah, blah, blah. But it's just not, you'd rather do it out on the pitch kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I never wanted to be the one to go in to the coach and say, all right, I actually feel good now, like, put me back in. Even though that's definitely how I was feeling. I just felt like I turned the corner. And I was feeling really good. But even, I don't know what game it was then. I played in each of the finals. And then it came to the prelim, and I was the medical sub again. Like, so the medical subs are very likely to play, but like just in a less minutes kind of thing, because someone nearly always gets injured. And anyway, I came in and I felt really good, and I was playing really well. I was like, oh, like this could go fine. But then obviously Max got injured in the same game, Max Holmes, and he's had an unbelievable year. But he was holding his hamstring, and I was like, right, that's not a good look for someone to be playing next week if they're holding their hamstring. I'm like, right, I'll be in, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But even
you're good for your teammate, obviously, that he's injured, just for the record. But
yeah. Well, it actually is legitimate.
Never like seeing anyone injured, but
yeah, it is cliched in terms of, you know, you kind of have to say that, but it genuinely is very mixed. Because he's young as well. Max is a lot younger than me. He's 20, I'd say he's 20, like 2021.
Wow.
He had such a good year. And the thing about it over here is that if you're not playing in grand final day, you don't get a medal. Jeez. So that's like
if you don't get game time.
If you're not in the 23 players that togs off on game day, you don't get a medal. And
that is harsh.
Yeah, that's why it's mixed. Like, because you know, like you could play 24 games and the 25th game is the grand final and you're not getting a medal. So it's like, it's very ruthless in that sense. But in the build up, yeah, I kind of felt like I was going to play, but then it was touch and go because it wasn't his hamstring. It was more his nerve or something, which I wasn't fully over, but he was testing away and apparently looking really good. So then I was on the, you know, I could have been medical sub again. So I was like, I still probably would have played in some capacity, but I'd obviously rather the full game. So it was the night before, yeah, they told me, they said, yeah, look, you'll be in for the full game. I was like, perfect.
And were the boys already on the way over by that stage? Obviously they were, like, because they wouldn't have made it in time.
Well, I actually met my brother about an hour later to give him the tickets and the whatever else, the passes to get into the rooms and stuff. So yeah, I just told him there and he was delighted, obviously.
Class.
And yeah, and then it worked out well.
Do you know when you're saying, right, that you weren't going well, or you say you weren't going as well as you could have, and then you suddenly kind of clicked into gear, like what attributes did you not bring to not be going well? Do you know, like in football, you're saying, even if you catch 2 or 3 kickouts to get yourself into a game, or you might kick a point and you're back in the flow of it, then like what happens in AFL that makes you suddenly go, right, I'm on it?
Yeah, well, I just wasn't bringing much intensity, to be honest. Like, and my competitive, like I'm normally very competitive, but I just wasn't at the start of the year. I was kind of happy, and you know, I was happy to watch the kind of game go by if it was going well. And like, I actually played well in the closer games and the tighter ones. I felt really good in those. But the ones where we were looking really good and fellas were lifting, I was kind of happy just to sit back and, you know, kind of watch it all happen, which you can't do. Like, and I understood that I understood it was happening, but I found it harder to change. Even after understanding it was happening, I do remember coming off at one stage in one of the games earlier in the year, and it was going really, like, the game was going really well. And normally, like, fellas are dying to get back on because stats are a huge thing in Australia. Like, they're massive. So fellas like to get their stats, you know, in terms of touches and things like that. But I was like, you know what, that kind of stuff just didn't bother me in the slightest, which is funny laughing back now because of how it worked out. But like, if you don't take pride in your own performance, like, you're just not going, you know, it's just never going to go well. Yeah.
And when it clicked, like, do you know what it was that clicked?
Yeah,
was it that fear?
Oh, it was very much a head thing, and I do a bit of work. My uncle, he's very good with the heady kind of stuff. And to be honest, I just wasn't bothering him for a lot of that earlier period. But yeah, by the time it came where I was like, all right, finals are kind of coming, I have to get my act together. And then the real soul searching kind of came out, and then I got dropped, and the dropping kind of really helped me in a sense, because I was I was comfortable is probably the word. I probably just felt too comfortable, and then the dropping kind of happened. I was like, geez, right, let's go again kind of thing. And I just felt really good. But again, as I say, like I just left it very late.
Sometimes the dropping can be important because, as well, if you're, no, I'm not saying this happened to you, but it's happened to me in the past, where like you're actually not going great, but you can't get back up to your level without being taken out for a week or two. You know, you almost have to be taken out just to kind of settle yourself again, because your mindset is just kind of you're not as sharp because you know you're not playing as well. Do you know what I mean? Like it's such a strange mentality, but like the manager needs to be able to know when to take a fella out to actually help him. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Like sometimes just taking a fella out of the fire a bit. Like
it's so common, Jimmy, and it's gas. Mark, here you say that as well, and we all would have experienced that as well. Where I think the first part of it is having the self-awareness as a player to kind of say there's nothing worse. And I'm sure we've been in teams where you can probably see teammates struggling and they're completely oblivious to it. And the coaches are kind of looking at them and go, this fella, the penny's not dropping here. And then it comes into maybe the relationship you have with your teammates where you can have those honest conversations. Or, as you're saying, the environment with Geelong where there's a positive relationship with coaches and things like that. Or someone like having your uncle where you can have a chat with someone around that. And you need really that moment to go, shit, it dawns on you. And it takes you out of your comfort zone. We used to always have a thing that the worst place you could be in elite sports, whether it's AFL or Gaelic football or any sport, is your comfort zone. You know, if you're there, it's the biggest enemy to success in elite sports. So it's funny for you to have that awareness yourself, and then get maybe a kick in the hole off the coaches to get dropped. And like I say, we've all been there ourselves as well. But it gives you that focus again and energy, and for you to be able to turn it around. I think that's a brilliant story that maybe not a lot of people would know, you know?
Yeah.
Do you know what we did one time? We had we were all in the comfort zone with Kerry. And
which year?
Brought in
every year for those 6 years you were.
But Fitzmaurice brought in this sports psychologist, and we had to all write down, I think it was one good thing about everyone else on the panel and two bad things. Oh, lads. So you're getting 60 bad things.
Anonymous.
40 fellas. Huh?
All anonymous.
Anonymous. Yeah, completely anonymous. You're getting 60 insults into your inbox on a Wednesday morning. I could barely get out of bed. I'm absolutely depressed after.
Give us the team. What were you getting over?
Don't you like? It's anonymous, but you know something.
What were you getting back, James? Give us the team of your own. Don't break anyone else's thing. What were you getting
Mine
back?
was like tackling, and some fella said I didn't pass the ball enough or something like that. I was like, fuck off. That's not true.
you took it on board like that. It was positive.
So yeah,
who did you go in on? Who did you slate the most? Go on, give us a name. What year was this?
I forget what year it was. It must have been 17 or 18. I'd imagine 17. I think.
Who did you ever cut off like?
I'd cut off nobody, sure.
Come on, give someone a name. 5 years ago.
I actually can't remember. I doubt I said anything bad, but it was actually hard. Sure, by the time you're on your 30th person, you don't give a shit what you're saying, really.
And did it work? Did it work?
Gosh, we hated each other for about 6 months after.
Psychology 101.
Speaking about that, Mark, you could see it. Well, definitely you could see it in the aftermath when you're playing county championship, and all your teammates have flown over from Australia for a little tour of Ireland. I know they took in Portlaoise. They got to see a bit of Zach Tuohy's place, but they were down in Dingle too. You got the sense that there's a real family element to your squad in Geelong Cats.
Yeah, absolutely. It's very funny seeing them over here, and there's a few Geelong jerseys like up in pubs and stuff here. So like anytime they'd look at me as if to say like what's like kind of thing. It was funny, but it was it's very, you spend so much, like it's like any environment, you spend so much time with fellas that you just get to know them inside and out. And I suppose now that we can travel and stuff, and there had been Dingle had seen a few Geelong people over its time, pre-COVID even, so they probably relayed stories back, and then there was a massive group keen to get back this year, and yeah, they came to we played Crokes in the quarter final, and they all came to that, which was gas. So it was great to have them around.
What was the general review? Yeah.
What did they make of it? Like, what did they think of the football?
They loved it. Yeah, they loved it. Didn't know half the rules. I got a point. I kicked a point, and they were telling everyone that night about how good my goal was. They kept calling it a goal. Everyone was looking at him as if to say, like, that I told them I kicked a goal, like, and I was like, lads, no, it's not, like. But they loved it. Yeah, they loved it. But even the small town kind of stuff when they came to Dingle, like, and everyone knowing each other, that was very foreign to them. And it was brilliant.
Class. And there's been a lot of talk on this football pod over the last 5-6 weeks about Monday Club. James O'Donoghue, I don't even know if you experienced it after East Kerry won, after the slating you gave the South Kerry boys for going to the gym on the Monday in 2015.
That was different. The season was over.
Did you go to Monday Club this year?
No.
You didn't? Okay, that's fine.
Well, that's because our Monday Club won't be until we're finished our season.
Legion.
People went for it, Jimmy.
Yeah,
we lost a little bit of respect for you when you see.
What was the Monday Club like in Geelong?
Yeah, the Monday Club was we do there's a tradition in basically every club that you Mad Monday they call it.
Like that.
I don't know, is it every club, but in Geelong anyway, everyone kind of dresses up as something. And some people put serious effort in, and then some people just find something the day before to put together. But yeah, the Monday Club was brilliant again this year. It's basically, you start at, I don't know, 11 o'clock and have breakfast together, and then
off you go.
Go about your day. Yeah, it was brilliant.
I was watching some of the celebrations afterwards, and there was a YouTube video on the official Geelong page that said, "Too old, too slow, too good." And it was basically all the boys dressing up. Well, can you explain that to us? Like, why are you all dressing up as OAPs after you won the grand final on the Monday?
Yeah, it was just because I think we are the oldest. We have the oldest panel in the AFL, and we have done for a few years. And that's always kind of
Mark. That's the most experienced panel.
The most experienced, yeah, that's right. And and that's always kind of been what I suppose critics have said has been wrong with our club, and why we haven't achieved as much success, I suppose. So when we did win, lucky we won. I hope they weren't going to do it had we lost, because it wouldn't look great. But once we won, it was fine. And yeah, sure, there was, I suppose, whoever was over 31 or 2 dressed up as an older person, or a very experienced in life person. And then the rest of us just did whatever else. But yeah, there was a massive group of them.
Did the media have a big impact on the group when you're in a professional environment?
Certain fellas love it, because certain fellas are working in the media even as players. So they'd be seeing a lot of the talk or a lot of what's being said. But
so what, they'd be doing a bit more punditry while they're still playing?
Yeah. That type of thing. Yeah. And then there's huge access really to players over here if that's kind of the path you want to go down. And some players do.
How's that? Like the GA are old school markers that you would have experienced as well. It's like when you're in an environment, any inter-county team, it's the media are nearly like they're on the outside. Deal with them as little as humanly possible. We had it with our team. Jimmy, you would have had it with Kerry as well. And it's only when you step out of it you realise, well, it doesn't really have that much of an impact. But compared to Aussie rules, where it's a professional sport, it's probably a more commercialised sport, obviously. How do the coaches, would that ever, if a player's not playing well and he's doing media stuff in the middle of a season, do the coaches kind of turn around and go, you're not focused or any of that type of thing? Because that's what would happen GA-wise.
Yeah, 100% that would happen here, yeah.
What's the attitude there in all clubs or even specifically around Geelong?
No, I can really only speak for Geelong. But certainly no one's ever been berated. In my time there, they're very open to you doing things outside of actually playing. They actually encourage it. So it's as long as you don't give away any trade secrets, it's all good. But you're nobody, if you're doing media, like you can't be that's a prerequisite really, that that you just can't give.
Yeah.
You can't give away too much.
Yeah, you do a lot of internal stuff as well after the games. I've seen you doing the locker room tours after matches as well. But that's kind of in-house media stuff too. That there's kind of a big emphasis on bringing the fans inside, and like you mentioned the stats earlier on, how important they are. I know a lot of people over here, they follow the AFL through the AFL app, which is unbelievable. Like, it has an unbelievable level of knowledge and statistics in it. Like, it's outrageous. Like,
it's everything is just recorded. And
like, we barely know our top scorers over here in Ireland. Like,
yeah, I know.
We're way behind, lads. We know it. Like, we know the crack.
Well, Pat Spillane said the stats are killing the game.
Yeah, well, it actually has a massive impact on the game over. It's because if the games are so long, and I think that's probably what it stems from, and people don't generally watch the whole game, so they can look at their phone and say he had 30 touches, and generally, if you say someone had 30 touches, that's a very good game kind of thing. And if you're striking it up in conversation, or if it's in the media, and if someone says, oh, so and so had 32 touches and a goal or something, then that's automatically kind of a good game. But I'd be more of the opinion, if you give it away 16 times and you had it 20, what good is it? Like, but in fairness, like, there's the most midfielders get the most stats because they're around the ball the most. There's 90 stoppages a game, and it's always the midfielders that are around it, so they'll get the most touches. So it's midfielders that get most talked about, kind of like the scorers at home. Like, it's whoever kicked 1-7 or whatever it is would be the one talked about. But it's just very stat oriented over there. And
what are your key metrics that you're looking at for yourself, or do you care about that?
Well, it depends. So like if I was on one of their very good midfielders, my metrics would be how many times he actually touched the ball, or what impact he had, or how many meters gained. Things like that. Or, I basically, it is helpful in gauging impact in a lot of ways. But if you're on one of the best players, it's not necessarily about your stats. It's kind of more about
negating him.
Yeah. And that's been a lot of my role over the time, whether it's a forward or similar to a cornerback. Like,
I didn't want to say it, Mark, but you're describing yourself as a cornerback there, and my heart sank.
Yeah.
But all we ever say, you have to do a man marking job.
It is like, basically, it might be, or if you're playing on the wing and you're not necessarily playing in the best opponent, then you would probably look at your impact and how many times you touched it, or whatever it is, tackles, all that type of thing.
And like, when you're growing up, right, as a kid, and are you 6'3", 6'4"?
Yeah, 6'3", I'd say, yeah.
6'3", your midfield on teams growing up, you win Hogan Cup back-to-back, All-Ireland Minor back-to-back, you're captain at 15, you're in the middle, you're fetching high ball, you're kicking points. Like, there's a lot of elements to your game in Gaelic football like that. Do you get the same enjoyment out of being a stopper and a tackler and, dispossessions and chasing boys down? Do you get that same buzz from a match, or is it different to what it'd be like in Gaelic football when you're maybe fielding high ball or doing the bit more spectacular?
Not necessarily enjoyment. No, like, if I had my way, I'd be the fella getting heaps of stats and then doing all that type of thing. Sure, I know I haven't been at that level kind of thing, and that's ideally where, it would be great to do something like that in the future. But sometimes in terms of enjoyment, like, definitely catching ball and doing all that kind of stuff is, that's fun. Like, but in terms of if the opposition have an elite midfielder and I'm like, right, I want to kind of go head to head, like, that's very fun too.
Yeah.
Because it also gives you a chance to get involved when you're around the ball, and that they're going to want the ball. So, they'll take you to it. And that's where it's like, really, I try and make it kind of a one-on-one thing. That's really enjoyable in a different kind of way.
Because you'd have got a lot of plaudits for performances like that over the last, especially 2 years, 18 months, taking out Brownlow medalists, or, the main opposition players, from reading about it. Like,
yeah. And I probably struggled at the start because, like, you're allowed to get away with a lot of things over here, and like by the end of the game, like you just kind of feel like a terrible person, like, you know, you're kind of there to ruin someone.
What's wrong with that, Mark? You could do that.
Yeah, like you do feel like you feel like a bad person at the time, like, but then you get used to it, I suppose, and you kind of you start to relish it because you kind of have to, and you know it's part of the role, you know it's part of the game. But yeah, it just roles always evolve, depending on what you can showcase. So
has it changed you as a Gaelic footballer?
Geez, as a Gaelic footballer, I don't know. I've only played the 2 games in the past 4 or 5 years, so it's definitely a different fitness, football. Just more obviously free flowing and very fast and all that type of thing. So that was a shock to the system, all right? But geez, like, yeah. No,
were you sweeping against East Kerry? You had 6 in your back, didn't you?
Yeah, I was mainly. Yeah, I was kind of wing back coming back, and I probably didn't get forward as much as I would have liked. But yeah, conditions were bad, and I suppose the forward line East Kerry had, it was probably best that I do stay back for the most time.
You were tagged with man marking James O'Donoghue obviously that day.
I wasn't, fortunately. Yeah, no, I was happy to stay clear of James that day.
I was keeping an eye on you when you were going forward. I was the man to chase you. I was going, I'm using my legs to get back there now.
Yeah, right.
But like, do you play in the rain, like in Australia? I imagine like that the weather can be absolutely diabolical over there as well, would it?
It can, yeah, and it can be fairly tropical up in Queensland and stuff. So even when it's not raining, it's very humid. So like the ball might genuinely be just as slippy as if it's in rain. So yeah, and it's like a bar. It's way worse than a Gaelic football when it's actually wet. It's like it's very like a bar of soap. It's like and then the odd shape of it as well probably doesn't help. But yeah, and you're not allowed to wear gloves unless you get them ticked off with the AFL. So
you're not allowed to wear gloves. I wonder why no one did. You're actually not allowed unless dispensation or something. Or
I actually don't know why.
I was wondering.
You should bring over the Macassos. Remember the yellow gloves, black spots.
Brand ambassador.
They were like, "What is he wearing?"
James kicked off. You talk about media controversies. A major controversy earlier this summer where he slated a load of the Cork boys for wearing gloves on a sunny day.
I would never slate it. I
thought you were slating. It was a
hashtag Glovegate.
It was a vendetta.
Wearing gloves on a dry day.
Mark, could I ask? We were only chatting before you came on. There was an unbelievable period of which you were a key part of, an underage success for Kerry between, it was 4 Hogan Cups between yourselves and the same, 5 All-Ireland minors in a row, and we're saying that Kerry probably didn't have that sustained underage success. There was always a couple of players coming through, but you were right in the middle of that, a key component, captain, winning All-Irelands with the school and with the county. And you could see, we could even see it in Dublin. It was like, Jesus, there's going to be some players coming through for Kerry in the next 2 or 3 years. And there was a sense all around the country because it was so dominant. Was that a hard thing for you to then step away from that? Like okay, I get it's an amazing opportunity to be a professional athlete, but that group you would have been a part of with your school and the county team and being a captain in it as well. Was that emotionally really a massive decision for you, for your family, or how difficult was that, or was it easier just to say I couldn't turn down an opportunity like
that? It was easy at the time because I had a very short-term view in the whole thing. I remember sitting in the Hogan watching the semi-final that year, where the press happened, and yeah, we pressed in Dublin's kick out, and it was almost like a kind of
16.
That would have been 2016, yeah.
Yeah, 2 goals.
Yeah, it was almost like a revolutionary kind of thing, and
Gaelic press. Mark, they were cracked at that stage.
Who won that? Who won that game?
Goff won it.
But I just remember thinking that's where my future kind of was. And then because my knees were just no good, I kind of saw the Australian opportunity as a way to basically get a pre-season under my belt and learn a lot about my body and how a professional environment worked, while also getting my knees right. And then I was like, right, I could go home after that
Right.
And I'd still be there in time for a championship.
Were you thinking that?
Really?
Yeah, I was. And I actually told the club that in the meantime.
I'll be heading away here in a couple of weeks.
Yeah. 2 months.
I only told them in the past year and a half, and they found it very funny. But no, I was thinking that. Yeah, I was just thinking how much I'd actually get out of it in terms of just learning about professional environment, fixing my body, getting fitter, and then everyone taught me how tough pre-season was, and I was like, geez, I might as well do a pre-season to gain that experience too. And then I was like, I'll flake away after that. But by the time the first game came, I was like, I might as well try and play a few games, and then I played a few games in the twos kind of thing, and then I got my debut fairly early, and then I was like, geez, I might, and then I got dropped the week after, because I didn't even know like what was happening, to be honest. It was so fresh. I didn't know if I was playing well or playing poor, and then I was like, geez, I wouldn't mind trying to get a regular spot in this team now. And then it just their steps kept coming in the way.
Every couple of weeks, short-term view every couple of weeks.
Probably because like you're young guys going over there. People are going over 18, 19 years of age. And really, if you go over going over for 3 or 4 years, it's so long-term. It's such a massive commitment. That can nearly put people off. I remember, like, obviously, Kerry Kilkenny be a very good friend of mine. And he probably went with that mentality as well, Mark. And he did come home after 5 or 6, because he probably had the idea, I'm actually going to be over here for 3 or 4 years. And it just seems such a commitment at such a young age that you're approached nearly in a way. It's just small steps.
Took the pressure off,
you're taking the pressure off you and your family and stuff. That's an interest, because we've had a couple of people on who have done it, Conor McKenna, obviously, and Ray Canal and guys like that as well. But I don't think anyone's had the honesty, I suppose, of making the decision like that. And look how it's turned out for you. You're one of the longest serving guys there now. So incredible, yeah.
But tell me this, Mark, like in 16, say, when you were playing football and your knees were almost at an all-time low point, right? Or maybe 15, 16, to then go into a pre-season in Australia where, as you say, it's traditionally absolutely gruesome. Like, how do you go from kind of, like, what did they do to you over there to allow you to do that after coming from such a period of pain in your knees? Like,
yeah, initially when I went over for 2 weeks to do a combine and test and things like that, my knees were actually so bad that I couldn't do most of the events. And I had said that, and then I went to different clubs and said, look, I can't do much trialing, to be honest, because of how limited my knees actually were. It could flare up like that in one turn. Anything like that. So I went to Geelong and they did a medical on me, and I remember the physio, and he was doing a few tests, and he was like, it's this knee, blah, blah, blah. And he was like, oh yeah, no stress, we'll have that fixed in 3 months. And I kind of looked at him, I was like, how do you mean? Like, and he was like, like, you'll train, we'll build up your training and you'll be perfect in 3 months' time, kind of thing. I was like, I kind of laughed. I was like, yeah, good man, kind of thing. And he was like, go on away out now and train or whatever. And I did. And I went away and I said, Jesus. And then when I signed, it was just that they had, 3 or 4 full-time physios. They have a program in place. And by the time Christmas came, I probably had I was probably there for 4 weeks, I'd say, at this stage. They were actually pulling me back from drills. They were like, you're at your limit now. But I felt so good that they were pulling me back from some of the runs and stuff. And I was feeling really fit because I was on a watt bike heaped because I couldn't run. And then by Christmas, I was like feeling really good. And then I went back and I was testing really well, even up against the older fellas in terms of running. And it just built and built and built. And I was feeling really good. And by the end of my first preseason, I just felt amazing. And that contributed as well to staying as well.
What's that difference, Mark, with just the quality of physio and the full-time kind of attention that you're getting, that you just don't, you're not going to be able to get that in GAA. That's with all the will in the world, whether it's with Kerry, whether it's with Dingle, with any county team, and there's some great medical teams there. It's just the time, I suppose, that you're just not going to get that you do in a professional environment that got you through. Like,
yeah, and it wasn't necessarily the quality, because as you know, James, like Jorkeen at the time was working on me night and day. Like he was trying to do everything he could, but he also had to look after. How many clients outside of Kerry would he have had, James? Like he would have had heaps of people to look after, and he could not have done any more for me. And like I was obviously grateful for that, but once the opportunity came where it would just be full time focusing on one thing, it just kind of was like, it just made sense.
Yeah. So like, was it lifting weights, or was it like band work, or was it hands-on treatment and rubs? Like what was it that took you out of pain even?
It was a combination of all of it. It was strengthening first, and then slowly, like really slowly introducing running and different types of running. And it was really, it's like any injury that I've had that with how they've dealt with it, it's kind of like attacking it from different angles, and different treatments has always kind of helped. But certainly the building up of strength, that was part of it. And then it was the constant monitoring as well. How are you feeling now? Like, how are you feeling today? What's it feel like coming in? All that kind of stuff. And like they changed the program on a day-to-day basis, depending on how I'm feeling.
Wow.
And it was just really specific and monitored.
Well, I have picked up something there. Stephen O'Neill was retired, right? And he said that he hit the watt bike. And Mark, you put down a winter on the watt bike and you came back and look at the career you've had. There's the watt bike, knee injuries, boom.
O'Donoghue.
Jimmy, you're getting a bike for Christmas. We're going back to Kerry next summer.
You're calling Jack. You're calling Jack in February.
Actually, so I don't think Stephen O'Neill's actually a watt bike. I think it was some old mountain bike.
Rally Max. Someone to get Jimmy a Rally Max to get back to the Kerry team for next year.
Oh, that's all right.
Zipping around Clarity.
But it's interesting you say about the physios, because I remember when I was picking up a lot of knocks and I was strapping my 2 shoulders and my 2 ankles, right? Shoulder strapping was taking like 12 or 13 minutes per shoulder, right? So that's 25 minutes on my shoulders, right? There'd be a queue out the door, and next thing I'd have my second shoulder strapped, and I go, hang on, I have the 2 ankles to do now as well.
None of the other lads get a look in.
We had this with Bastic in our place. Bastic was playing, he was fucking 40 at the time of his final season. And it'd be 45 minutes on the and we're like, what? Everyone needs to get something done. And he's lying there. He's like a mummy going out of that pitch. Like, Jesus Christ.
Oh, it is demoralizing.
Mark, that year before you left, reading back in it, like you're captain in 15 for that second minor All-Ireland in a row. You're man of the match. I'm reading that you actually struggled to go down the stairs after that game. The knees are that bad. In 16, you're straight onto the Kerry under-21 panel. Am I right in saying that you only played the Munster final that year, or the game against Cork that year? Were you struggling with injury up to that? And then Cork beat you in 21s. Fitzmaurice called you in. Did he call you into the Kerry panel? You were on a match day panel for a Clare game in the Munster semi-final. And in the report that day, it says that, did you break down in the warm-up?
Yeah, I did. My knee, it was literally the kicking. I'd say it was the kicking in the start where you're kicking with a partner about 20 meters apart, and whatever way I loaded my leg, my knee just ballooned, and I looked down and it was just full of liquid, and that was kind of my day done. I kind of whispered it to Jorkeen, who was the physio at the time, just to see if there was anything he could do before I say anything. But it was just it was just banjacks.
So you were kind of bouncing from. You must have felt a little lost then, were you?
I felt what? Sorry?
You must have felt a little lost in those years with the knee before you went to Australia.
Yeah, I was just it was debilitating, really. But I didn't really help myself either. I never stopped playing with whatever team I could play with. It was actually, I was in UCC at the time. Actually, they probably felt a bit let down by having me there because I didn't really play with them that much. Because I genuinely couldn't. Like, it was just, it's not that I didn't want or anything. I just couldn't move very well. And then I tried all these different strappings and stuff, and that was probably, I was with the Kerry panel that year, and I was really trying to get back for a Dublin game, as unrealistic as it would be to make a debut in that type of environment. But I was really hell bent on doing something like that. And when that came, and it was obviously an upsetting end, I was there. By that stage, I was kind of like, yeah, I didn't really know what to do from there.
Yeah,
but it's so common. We the best young players, like in your position, Mark, that they're being pulled to play schools, club, inter-county. They're going in playing Sigerson. We've spoke about it on this podcast. Guys are getting injuries and stuff like that, and it's so difficult for young guys at 18, 19, 20 years of age being dragged to 5 or 6 different teams. And look, they're the best players, so every coach wants them in there, and it is an issue. And exactly like your situation there, where guys are getting injuries, and there's nothing worse. There's nothing worse as a player when you can't play games. You feel like I'm letting my teammates down for my club or my school or my college or whatever it is. And it's still a massive issue in GAA, and it's like hearing it from the horse's mouth, really, with yourself, the situation you went through, and that's probably 5 years ago, and it hasn't changed really, has it, lads? From what we've seen even this year with some of the young players with Sigerson and things like that. So it's just something that is front and center for GAA, that they need to find a balance, because it's all too common, the situation you're talking about.
Yeah.
Did the minor change up help?
Yeah, like it's hard to know if that's helped, and now there's a debate raging at the minute to
bring it back
to minors.
That hasn't. I don't think that's worked.
Well, it's hard to know if it's worked, but there's definitely a strong consensus to bring it back to minor and just forget about the reasons why it happened. But it definitely felt like 12 from 2009 to 2014-15 burnout, and the amount of overuse was at an all-time high around that time with players playing at so many different teams. So yeah, no, it's definitely a factor that needs to be brought into it as well. Mark, do you mind if I move you along to I suppose 2020, and you're actually in the mix you've been given the thumbs up to play for Kerry in that COVID year, and Cork happens. It's nearly like the fans of Kerry, they've okay, sure enough, they've got a couple of the boys through, like Thomas Sullivan and Sean O'Shea and Brino Bioglick and David Clifford, but they've been waiting to see Mark O'Connor, and 16 injury, Fitzmaurice has you in, and injury happens. And then in 2020, you're still in quarantine when Mark Keane buries the boys in Cork that night.
Great call.
Were you in the mix had conversations happen? Were you in the mix to play for Kerry in that kind of super short championship that winter?
Oh, well, I was in the mix to be involved anyway.
Yeah.
How well it would have went, I don't know. But yeah, I got home, and I kind of kept it really quiet when I came home. And I was doing the quarantine thing at home, and we were actually watching the game. I was watching the game with my family in the sitting room, and anyway, like, it was kind of looking good, and it was a terrible day. With the wet ball and everything, and I think it might have been, was it Connolly that kicked it in high, and
yes,
and then it fell in.
He went for a shot.
Yeah,
he went for a shot and it dropped. It was an awful effort, and we were nearly cheering. I was watching at home as well. I was like, that's it now. And next day, just fell into your man's hands.
Was it the same day Cav and Bet Donegal?
Yeah.
So the semi.
No. Tipperary Cork was the same day as Cavan Bet Donegal, wasn't it? Yeah.
And Tip beat Cork, then the Munster final, and played Dublin in the semi.
Yeah, we'd Cavan. The whole thing, it was a brutal championship. It was my last year with Dublin, and like we were probably expected to play you guys as well. I think everyone was expected to be Dublin Kerry again.
Were Tip in the final?
No, Tip lost to Mayo.
Tip lost to Mayo. We played Mayo again for about the millionth time in the final. But I remember watching that game as well, and I think the consensus, you probably took your eye off the ball a little bit, Jimmy, did you? Or you still should have won the game. 1-20, the Cork were going to beat us, but would have been a nice one just the way it panned out, Mark, if you were back and I got the opportunity to play, because such a time, those couple of months, that whole championship was just weird, like, so.
I remember the goal went in, like, and we were just all looking at the TV, and then everyone's heads just slowly pan over to me, like, in the room. And I just didn't know where to look, and then I just got up. I just walked out of the room. I didn't say anything. I was just like, right, let me process this whole thing, and
get me back to Australia.
High, and you think I was like, yeah, lovely, like, this is huge, and then obviously that happens, and it's just taken away. And it's not necessarily something I had that was taken away. I don't know. I probably had in my head, right, finally I get to.
There's a chance.
there's a chance, and then bang, yeah. And it was just, that was horrific. Yeah.
You got to scratch that itch because you negotiated a new contract in the summer, right? It was in the summer this year. So you're 25 now. Is it a 3-year deal till you're 28?
2-year.
2-year deal. Is there a clause in that contract that allows you to play for Dingle when you come home?
There's not, but they've been so accommodating anyway that, I haven't needed it. One of the lads actually said that Michael Jordan by the end had a love of the game clause that he could play basketball wherever he wanted. Like, I could imagine walking into the GM's office asking for a clause that Michael Jordan had. He'd tell me to get right.
Talk to your agent, Mark. Talk to your agent. Yeah, you're the AFL now. You're big time.
That's brilliant. It probably shows your progression over there and how they view you. That, like, I know you were young when it happened, but you got a bit of a slap in the wrist from playing a couple of years ago when you were young. That was all ironed out, and now, like, this year you've won the grand final. All the boys are over watching you play, and it's come real full circle.
It has, but in fairness, with how I handled it that time, it's not. I probably went for the don't ask for permission, ask for forgiveness approach, because it was just so quick. I flew in on a Wednesday, and
love that approach.
Yeah, I'm a fan of that approach. I must say.
Easier to ask for forgiveness, 100%.
Yeah, I like that one.
Well, I actually had no choice because it was so short term. I flew in the Wednesday night. The lads were training. I went straight up to training just to see the lads and kind of knock about. And then, like, a day or two later, the lads were like, "Oh, do you think there's a chance?" Like, and I was like, "Jesus, yeah, like I'll play," kind of thing. And sure, that would have been the middle of the night for Geelong anyway. So
they're the lads that you grew up with. Like, they're the lads from the club saying this to you. They're really pulling at the heartstrings.
Exactly. And I did a very poor job of explaining what it actually meant to me. And sure, they wouldn't have had a clue. Like, they wouldn't, they're probably like, "Oh, it's something you don't get paid for." And it's like, like, it's your local club, like, whatever kind of thing. But they didn't at the time understand, like, who's involved and what it actually means to community, to family, and to everyone else. And I did a very poor job, in fairness, of actually explaining that. And I actually did a very poor job of understanding that, as a professional with a contract, you can't actually do that type of thing. And they actually had one of their recruits over at the time, and he was actually at the game the next week. And I feel terrible to this day, but I just gave him nothing. Like, I didn't play after that. And that was a quarter final, and they beat East Kerry in the semi, and we went down to Crokes by a point, I think it was, in the final. And that ate at me then for.
Was that the year that was? You would have been playing in that final then?
Yeah.
Oh my God, that is a fucking sickener.
So that is a sickener, yeah. And that was probably as close as I was to staying on.
Jesus, that's mad.
Really? That kind of emotions of those couple of weeks.
Oh, that was, it was just an emotional roller coaster. Like, and as I say, my body was feeling amazing, and I hadn't actually played football in years where my body was playing amazing, or where it was feeling amazing, and I wanted to see how it went when I actually feel good. And I was feeling really good, and then that happened, and it wasn't ideal.
Jesus.
So we can put it on the record that there's no love of the game clause. There's just a love of the game understanding.
That's exactly it.
Okay, that sounds good. There was a lucky coincidence when you moved over as a kid, as well as going with the work that it did in your knee and how the short-term view on how you'd approach things in Australia helped you. Zach Tuohy joined in the same off-season, didn't he?
Yeah, he did.
How much of an impact did that have, having someone like that who had, and I know you would have had Tig Kennelly and you would have had maybe Tommy Walsh. I don't know if you spoke to Tommy much about his experience, but there were people around you that you could speak to. But having Zach Tuohy as a teammate over the last couple of years, how much has that helped you?
Oh, massively. And I say it often, even if he wasn't in the same team or wasn't as good to me as he was, it would have been an inspiration anyway because of what he's actually done in the game. So just having him at the club has been brilliant. And he actually called on to Dingle there a few weeks ago as well. So that was great. And he's done something really special over there. And I suppose it would probably take an Irish person to go out and actually see the game and go to a few games to understand what he's actually done. It's pretty special. But yeah, for me, I just got pox lucky, to be honest.
When you say what he's done and the standing that is held in, like, you've played 88 games, I think, in AFL. Only 5 Irish recruits have ever played over 100. We know that yourself, Zach, and Ty Kennelly have, Premiership medals. Pierce Hanley's obviously a player that's gone over there and made a massive name for himself. Where is Zach standing over there in the game?
Like,
he's not just a great Irish player.
No, he's not. He's not. I'd say the percentage that have actually played 250 games would be, to be honest, I'd only be guessing, but I'd say it'd be about 1 in 20, maybe 5% or so. And then get people who've played 250 games and have a Premiership medals, even less. So, that would probably, the stats will probably bring stats back into it for that type of one.
Did he come home? He's Portlaoise, isn't he? He played a couple of county championships, I think, did he?
He did. He was telling me the last day he has 8 county championship medals.
Yeah, they were very late noughties into the early Portlaoise were flying it. Yeah, they had a great team. Kerry and those guys. He would have played a few of them. Yeah,
he came home and played county championship nearly every year.
He did before, but it was gas. He was actually, when he came down for the game against East Kerry, actually. And he stayed in Dingle that night, and he was there. The lads were chatting to him anyway. And they're gutted, obviously, And then he was there. Yeah, well done, lads. I have 8 county championships. They almost kicked him
out. Though, Mark. They're only leash medals.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't know how that works. It must have been when he was at Carlton before he came to Geelong. I'd say he used to come down or go home and play. That's one.
Jeez.
You probably get this question thrown at you every single time, right? But I'm going to go around it in a roundabout way. What was it like watching the boys you grew up with, a lot of them, winning an All-Ireland final? You would have woken up early that morning to watch it with some of your housemates, I presume, the All-Ireland final this year. What was that like emotionally?
Yeah, it was just very, very mixed. I was like a fan in one way, and then I was like a friend. I was obviously friends with heaps of lads. And then, I just felt like, I suppose opportunity cost often comes into it when you leave somewhere and do something else. So the opportunity cost factors kind of came into it, and so it was kind of all of that into a bit of a cocktail. And it was 2 a.m, so I was wrecked tired, got no sleep that night. But the overarching feeling was definitely delight for the lads, and especially like my club mates. Because in Kerry, like, it's been a bit of a, not a great few years in terms of All-Ireland medals, and for particularly Tom O'Sullivan, who I grew up with, didn't have one. Like Paul Gainey had already won one, like, so I was like, right, great for him, but geez, Tom, the amount of work Tom's put in, for him to actually get over the line was fairly special.
Yeah, he was robbed this year of an All-Star, wasn't he?
He was. Yeah, because he was on. I thought he was on, because I actually watched quite a few of the games this year, and I thought he was on for possibly Player of the Year if if the final went really well for him. And then to be shafted in the end was, I thought, was fairly harsh.
Yeah, I think we're on the same page there. But Tom won't lose any sleep over that either. He got the biggest prize. He'd be delighted. He's a top lad, isn't he, Tom? He's a serious operator as well.
He is. But yeah, to actually get the All-Ireland medal now, it's almost like the relief that, right, the first one's out of the way, I have one, and now I can drive on again.
Yeah. If you had to take one footballer to Geelong, who would you take?
Jeez. I better not pick a Kerry, man.
Yeah, don't pick Kerry.
No, feel free to.
Yeah, bring Clifford over with you for a couple of years.
Yeah. Well, Jesus, Clifford, he'd succeed anywhere. I playing with Shawnee growing up, in minors and that, Shawnee O'Shea, I was like, he just had everything. He had the work rate, he had the talent, he had the mindset. He just had everything. I was like, again, you could drop him anywhere and he'd be fine.
Yeah, I agree.
That clutch moment this year, that free. Paddy, yeah. Mark,
that's a sore one. That must be moment of the year. Inside in the holding stand, press box.
I was beside him.
A little tear down the edge of the eye. Oh.
He kicked a better free against the Stacks last week, didn't he?
There were no tears.
He did, to be fair.
Yeah. Mark, you've been brilliant with your time, man. It's been great getting to know you over the last little while and having you on the pod. Thanks a million. You're back home for the next couple of weeks. What is 2023 going to look like for you boys? Are you chasing, obviously, the defense of the title again? What's that going to be like?
Back, baby.
Yeah. What's that going to be like? Are you going to be hungry? You mentioned the questions about age of the squad.
Yeah, who knows? But it was actually another thing that everyone always talks about, the mix of emotions when you actually win one. One of the things that really struck me and will stick with me throughout the years is everyone on our panel was on the ground afterwards, and they were kitted up in their Geelong kit. And again, like that, they're probably like, geez, I've missed out. Delighted for you, but I've missed out. And they'd be some of my better mates now as well. So I was kind of almost like, geez, like we'll have to go again.
And is that some of the younger crew? Like
mainly, yeah. We actually, my draft year was it was very big, and we have some really good players. Like they'd be very happy now with our draft in terms of retention, because the turnover is very, turnover happens every year. But our draft kind of did very well up until now. So you'd be kind of very close to those fellas, and some of those fellas missed out. So, yeah, we'll see how it goes. I don't know how we'll react. Hopefully very positively.
We'll be keeping a close eye on that. And I know you'll be on the Watt bike the first 2 weeks of Christmas this year, doing your own preseason. The Kerry itch, you've said it before, it is something that you want to do someday. That still exists?
Yeah, it does. Geez, don't know how realistic it is after playing in the last 2 games. I definitely have to change my body shape up a bit and make a few changes. But no, it's definitely always going to be there.
Mark O'Connor, top class. Thank you for joining us on the Football Pod this week. It's been great to chat to you.
Fair play to you, Mark. So, man.
Thanks, Mark. Congrats again. Good year.
Thank you.
All right, that was class. Mark O'Connor, the one that got away, James O'Donoghue.
Absolutely. Top fella though, typical Kerry lad. Sound as a pound. Most importantly.
Class.
Wow. Yeah, he's so grounded, isn't he?
Oh, it's unbelievable. Just talking to him. Even that self-awareness, Paddy, earlier in the year where he knew it just wasn't going right, wasn't sure how to get it, and he found a way to get himself back.
Best players have that. I'm telling you. They don't need someone giving them coaches getting on their back and stuff. You know yourself if you're not operating at your best, and for him to have a little nudge off the coaches getting his rest and reaching out to his uncle and having a chat about it. It's for he's a young guy, like I know he's had a brilliant career in Australia already, coming up to 100 games and winning the Premiership, but he's 25. To have that awareness to do that, it's a brilliant story. I think we could see it. Like I'm a dub. What you're looking there, you see himself and Zach too, the success they had. You just love seeing Irish guys going down there and doing so well. And look, I think you get a sense he'll play for Kerry one day. It's probably going to be a bit further down the road than Kerry supporters would like, but you just get a sense he loves the game still, And it was great to get an insight from him. To the background there was very nice.
If he's 28, and he actually said there at the end, he was like, he kind of knows that maybe his body shape has to change a little bit. Maybe trim down. He probably doesn't need all the strength he has maybe for GA. So by the time he's 28, 29, he could be.
Kennelly was late coming back. What age was Kennelly in 09?
32.
That's year when they would be all Ireland. He was in his 30s, was he?
Yeah, he was. Yeah.
So if you go bring the Cliff with him for next season, be ideal.
Have you seen the AFL app with the stats? You got to get on this, boys. It's absolutely incredible. It has literally every single possible statistic you could possibly look at. But Mark O'Connor, 6'3", 89 kg, and he togs out big over there as well. Like he is an animal when he's playing.
Well, I used to say the Sunday game I was 6'4". I wouldn't trust any of those stats.
Did you?
Aye, 6'4", 14 stone, beast. The little fella, not even 6 foot, like trudging on.
Occupation. Are you 5'11", 5'10"?
5'11" and a half.
What are you, James? 5'9"?
How dare you? 5'10".
Yeah, I'm a little bit taller than you, Jim. You flick the hair up though as well.
Yeah. And I have those things that you put in the shoes to give you an extra like 2 or 3 inches.
You have all the tricks.
Look at him. What a man.
Yeah.
Where's my night out? Like?
Boys, it was a pleasure. Thanks for joining us again on the Football Pod. To everyone at home for listening in. Guramila Mahagat. Lads, we will catch up next Monday.
Au revoir.
See you later, boys.